in bed with another man, she didn't look ashamed. She looked victorious. Ralph was a hard-working man, a husband who believed in love and loyalty. His days began at 5 a.m. when the sun was still a faint glow on the horizon. He worked as a mechanic in a small garage, his hands perpetually stained with grease, his back aching from hours spent under cars. But he didn't mind the work. It was honest labor, and it paid the bills. More importantly, it provided for Laura, his wife of 10 years. Laura was everything to Ralph. She was beautiful and had been his high school sweetheart, the one person who had always believed in him, even when he didn't believe in himself. Or so he thought. Their marriage hadn't been perfect, no marriage ever is, but Ralph had always believed they were a team. He worked long hours to make ends meet, while Laura took care of their home. They didn't have much, but they had each other, and that had always been enough. Or so Ralph had thought. He had built a life with his wife, Laura, never imagining that one day he would walk into his own bedroom and find her tangled in the sheets with another man. But this wasn't just any man. It was a powerful and wealthy judge. It was a Tuesday afternoon when Ralph had come home early, a rare occurrence because the garage had been slow. He had planned to surprise Laura with dinner, maybe even a movie if she was in the mood. But as he approached their modest home, he noticed a sleek black car parked in their driveway, a car that didn't belong to anyone they knew. Ralph wondered who the visitor was as he unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The house was eerily quiet, save for the faint sound of muffled voices coming from the bedroom. His heart pounded as he approached the door, his hand trembling as he turned the knob. What he saw inside would haunt him for the rest of his life. Laura was in bed with another man. Not just any man, Judge Harold Whitmore, a powerful and wealthy figure in their small town. The judge's influence was well known. He was a man who could make or break careers with a single word. And there he was, in Ralph's bed, with Ralph's wife. The room seemed to spin as Ralph stood frozen in the doorway. Laura didn't look ashamed. She didn't panic or try to cover herself. Instead, she smirked as if she had won some kind of game. The judge, however, remained calm, almost indifferent, as if Ralph's presence was nothing more than a minor inconvenience. The message was clear. Ralph was nothing compared to the man she had chosen. The judge didn't even bother to hide his arrogance. He leaned back against the pillows, smirking. "You weren't supposed to be home," Laura said, her voice calm, almost bored. Ralph clenched his fists. "After everything I've done for you this?" The judge chuckled. "Looks like your wife just upgraded." Ralph wanted to fight, but he knew the truth. He was powerless. The judge had connections, wealth, and influence. If Ralph so much as laid a hand on him, he could lose everything in an instant. Days after, just when he thought things couldn't get worse, Laura filed for divorce. She didn't admit to cheating. Instead, she twisted the truth, accusing Ralph of abuse and manipulation, claims that were completely false, but hard to fight against. The court sided with her, thanks to the judge's influence, and in the end, Ralph lost almost everything. His savings, his home, even part of his future income, all taken away in a divorce that was as ruthless as it was unfair. Once a proud man, Ralph was now broken, betrayed, and nearly penniless. But if Laura and her powerful lover thought they had destroyed him forever, they were wrong. Because Ralph wasn't done yet. Ralph had lost almost everything, his home, his money, his dignity. But he refused to let betrayal define him. If Laura and the judge thought they had destroyed him for good, they were wrong. Ralph wasn't going to beg. He wasn't going to fight them in court. He was going to hit them where it hurt the most. With the little money he had left, he sold what remained of his belongings and disappeared without a trace. He moved to a new city, far from the place where his life had been ripped apart. No friends, no connections, just a fresh start. But before he vanished, he left behind a ticking time bomb. What Laura and her powerful lover had forgotten was that Ralph had cameras in his home. The security system, meant to keep their house safe, had unknowingly captured the affair in perfect clarity. Video evidence of Laura and the judge sneaking around, of whispered conversations, of moments that should have remained hidden. From the shadows, Ralph compiled the footage. The judge, a man who built his career on the image of integrity, was now exposed. And Laura, who had sold her marriage for wealth, was about to learn that power can crumble in an instant. Carefully, Ralph leaked the footage to the media, anonymously. The effect was instant and brutal. The once respected judge was disgraced. His name was plastered all over the news. His career, built on lies and corruption, collapsed overnight. Forced to resign, his future was left in ruins. But that wasn't the worst part. The scandal reached his wife, a woman who had stood by him for years, unaware of his secret life. When she found out about Laura, she didn't just leave. She made sure everyone knew what kind of man he really was. She labeled Laura a homewrecker, a gold-digging disgrace. She harassed her, humiliated her, and made sure no one saw Laura as the victim. Laura, once dreaming of a rich and easy life, now found herself in a nightmare. The judge, stripped of his power, had nothing to offer her. No money, no security, no future. And just like that, the man she had betrayed her husband for walked away, leaving her to suffer alone. From a distance, Ralph watched it all unfold. He didn't need to confront them. He didn't need to lift a finger. The betrayal had destroyed itself. For the first time in a long while, Ralph smiled. Years passed, and Ralph slowly rebuilt his life. Far from the city where everything fell apart, he lived quietly, keeping to himself. No more scandals, no more betrayal, just peace. He worked an honest job, kept a low profile, and enjoyed the simple freedom of being unknown. The past? It felt like a distant memory. The sting of Laura's betrayal had faded with time, and the rage that once fueled him was gone. He had won. He had moved on. Life was steady and predictable. He spent his evenings reading, his weekends exploring the nearby countryside, and his nights sleeping soundly, free from the chaos that had once defined his life. But he was wrong. Ralph had no idea what was coming. The past was not finished with him yet. On a stormy night, the rain poured heavily outside, the wind howling through the trees as thunder rumbled in the distance. Ralph sat in his dimly lit living room, sipping a cup of coffee, lost in thought. His life was quiet now, just the way he liked it. Then came the knock. It was slow, deliberate. 3 steady taps. Ralph frowned. He wasn't expecting anyone, and he rarely had visitors. For a moment, he considered ignoring it, but something compelled him to answer. He walked to the door and hesitated before unlocking it. The storm raged on outside, but the sight before him made his blood freeze. There she was, Laura. The woman who had once shattered his life stood on his doorstep, soaked to the bone, shivering. But she wasn't the Laura he remembered. Her beauty was gone. Her once glowing skin looked pale and lifeless. Her eyes, once filled with arrogance, were now hollow and sunken. She looked weak, broken, desperate. Ralph didn't say a word. He just stared at her, waiting. Laura swallowed hard, her lips trembling as she finally spoke. "Ralph, I need your help." Laura's hands trembled as she clutched the doorway for support. Her breath was shaky, her voice barely above a whisper. "Everything went wrong after you left, Ralph." She swallowed hard, avoiding his gaze. "The judge abandoned me. He acted like I never existed. I had no money, no home, nothing. I tried to survive, but it was impossible. No one wanted to help me. No one cared." Her frail body swayed slightly as she continued. But that wasn't the worst part. She finally looked up, her hollow eyes filled with something Ralph couldn't quite place. Fear, regret, maybe both. "He infected me with HIV. The words hung in the air between them. "I didn't know until I started getting sick. By the time I found out, it was too late. It's advanced now. The doctors say there's nothing they can do." A single tear slipped down her cheek. I know I don't deserve your help, she said, tears streaming down her face. But I have nowhere else to go. Please, Ralph. I'm begging you. She stared at him, waiting, hoping. Ralph stood still, his face unreadable as Laura poured out her misery. He let her speak, her weak voice trembling as she begged for his help. But he felt nothing. Not pity, not anger, not even satisfaction. Just a deep, hollow emptiness where any feelings for her used to be. When she finally fell silent, her pleading eyes searching his for any sign of mercy, Ralph laughed. A cold, sharp laugh that cut through the storm outside. Help you? He shook his head. Laura, you threw me away like garbage the moment you found someone richer. You never cared about me. And now, after losing everything, you think I should care about you? She opened her mouth to speak, but Ralph stepped back, gripping the door. You made your choice, Laura. You chose him over me. You chose money and power over love and loyalty. And now you want me to save you? No. Find peace when you die. His voice was steady, without an ounce of sympathy. And don't ever come back here again. Then, without waiting for a response, he shut the door. The lock clicked into place. And just like that, the past was gone. Ralph stood by the window, arms crossed, watching as Laura stumbled away into the night. The rain pounded against the ground, soaking her thin, fragile frame. She didn't look back. She had no reason to. There was nothing left for her here. He exhaled slowly, feeling a strange sense of finality. The woman who had once torn his life apart was now just a shadow, fading into the storm. Her fate was no longer his concern. For years, the memory of her betrayal had haunted him. But as he turned away from the window, something inside him shifted. It was over. Not just this moment, not just this night, all of it. The pain, the anger, the past. Ralph wasn't the broken man she had left behind. He had survived. He had rebuilt. He had won. And as he locked the door for the last time, he knew one thing for certain. Laura was nothing more than a chapter he had finally closed. Ralph sat down, staring at the fading raindrops on the window. This was more than just a personal victory. It was a lesson. A lesson about betrayal, choices, and consequences. If there's one thing I've learned from this, he muttered, it's that not everyone who smiles at you has good intentions. Some people will take your love, your kindness, and your sacrifices for granted, until they have no one left. He shook his head. Never let people use you. Never let betrayal turn you into a victim forever. And most importantly, never waste your time saving someone who wouldn't hesitate to destroy you if the tables were turned. Ralph knew that some might see his response as cruel, but was it really? Some of you might hate what I did. You might think I should have forgiven her. But tell me, if you were in my shoes, what would you have done? Would you show mercy? Or would you walk away knowing they deserved exactly what they got? Let's hear your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe for more stories like this. Thank you for watching.